In this episode of True Crimes Unfold, we go through the brutal and tragic murder of 19-year-old Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto in Indonesia, a case that highlighting domestic violence, youth aggression, and the eerily disturbing lack of remorse from the perpetrators. Please note that events and scenarios in this video may be graphic for some viewers. Discretion is advised. Details of the videos are taken from actual case files. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're listening from, what type of cases you'd like us to cover next, and we'll make sure to add them to our list. And don't forget to subscribe to get new stories as soon as they're released. Now, settle in, get ready, and let's begin. It was a sunny morning in Indonesia, but what should have been an ordinary day turned into a scene straight out of a nightmare. A car, abandoned and reeking of mystery, caught the attention of locals in a quiet neighborhood. Little did they know, this seemingly ordinary vehicle held a gruesome secret that would send shockwaves across the nation. Inside the car lay the lifeless body of 19-year-old Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto, a bright and beautiful young woman whose life was cut short in the most horrifying way imaginable. What began as a baffling discovery quickly unraveled into one of the most shocking murder cases Indonesia has ever seen. The car, parked on the side of a road in Tangerang, gave off an unusual odor that nearby residents couldn't ignore. It was the kind of smell that sticks to your memory, foreboding and unmistakable. Driven by curiosity and concern, a group of locals approached the vehicle, peering inside to uncover the source of the stench. What they saw will haunt them forever. Adis's body was sprawled in the back seat, her face bruised, her lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. Around her were chilling signs of violence, evidence of a struggle that told a story more terrifying than any could have imagined. The once vibrant young woman was now the centerpiece of a horrific crime scene that left even seasoned investigators reeling. Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto wasn't just another face in the crowd. To those who knew her, she was a beacon of joy and ambition. Friends described her as the life of the party and a sister to everyone she met. She had dreams as big as her heart, aspirations that reached far beyond her hometown. At just 19, Adis was already carving out her place in the world. She was studying business with plans to one day run her own company. She wanted to inspire people, her best friend said. She was always thinking about the future, about making her family proud. But behind her radiant smile, Adis harbored a secret. She had been involved in a rocky relationship with a young man named Arif Wahyu. Friends had often expressed concerns about their tumultuous dynamic, but no one could have predicted the dark turn their relationship would take. As police arrived on the scene, the mystery only deepened. The car's owner, Arif, was nowhere to be found. Investigators immediately identified him as a person of interest. But what they uncovered during their search would shock even the most hardened detectives. CCTV footage revealed chilling images of Arif and another young woman, later identified as his new girlfriend, Nadia Sukma, driving the very car where Adis's body was found. Their movements on the night of the murder painted a sinister picture of premeditation and cruelty. According to the footage, Arif and Nadia had been spotted purchasing cleaning supplies, duct tape, and gasoline, items that investigators believe were intended to destroy evidence. Their cold, calculated behavior stood in stark contrast to the horror they had left behind. As the investigation continued, the horrifying details of Adis's final moments came to light. She had been lured into the car under false pretenses, believing she was meeting Arif to resolve their ongoing conflicts. Instead, she walked straight into a trap. Inside the vehicle, an argument escalated into violence. Adis fought valiantly, but the odds were stacked against her. Arif and Nadia, driven by jealousy and rage, overpowered her, leaving her battered and lifeless in the back seat. What drove two young people to commit such a heinous act? The motive, investigators revealed, was as old as time: jealousy and control. Arif, unwilling to let go of Adis, viewed her independence as a threat. Nadia, consumed by envy, saw Adis as an obstacle to her relationship with Arif. Together, they formed a toxic bond that ended in murder. The murder of Adis Sara Angelina Cuto became a lightning rod for public outrage. Social media erupted with calls for justice, as hashtags like "A Justice for Dice" and the "Stop the Violence" began trending nationwide. Candlelight vigils were held across Indonesia, with thousands gathering to honor the young woman whose life had been stolen. For many, Adis's murder was not just a crime, it was a wake-up call. It exposed the darker side of relationships gone wrong, the dangers of unchecked anger and jealousy, and the vulnerability of young women in a world that often fails to protect them. As police closed in on Arif and Nadia, the pair seemed to believe they could escape justice, but their arrogance would be their downfall. With mounting evidence and public pressure, investigators were determined to bring them to justice and ensure that Adis's voice would not be silenced. The case was far from over, but one thing was clear: Adis's story would not be forgotten. It had already become a symbol of resilience and a call to action, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable horror, the truth will always find its way to the light. Adis Sara Angelina Cuto wasn't just a name on a police report. She was a dreamer, a doer, and a young woman who lit up every room she entered. Her murder wasn't just a crime. It was a tragedy that left a gaping hole in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. At just 19 years old, Adis had a whole life ahead of her. Born and raised in a close-knit community in Indonesia, she was the second of 3 siblings and the pride of her family. Her parents described her as a diligent, kind-hearted girl who always went the extra mile for her loved ones. "She was our sunshine," her mother said tearfully. "She made everything brighter." Adis had big dreams. She was studying business at a local university, with plans to one day open her own company. She often spoke of wanting to give back to her community, to create opportunities for others the way her parents had created opportunities for her. Her friends remember her as a go-getter who refused to let anything stand in her way. "She had this magnetic energy," said her best friend Maya. "When you were around her, you felt like anything was possible. She believed in herself, and she made you believe in yourself too." But Adis's drive wasn't the only thing people admired about her. She was also fiercely loyal, always ready to lend a helping hand or a listening ear. Whether it was organizing study groups for her classmates or staying up late to comfort a friend, Adis made it clear that she cared deeply about the people in her life. Behind her infectious smile and boundless optimism, Adis was hiding a darker reality. For 2 years, she had been in a tumultuous relationship with 21-year-old Arif Wahyu, a young man who initially seemed like Prince Charming, but quickly revealed a much darker side. When they first met, Arif swept Adis off her feet with his charm and confidence. He was attentive, always showing up with flowers or sweet messages, and he made her feel like the center of his world. But as time went on, the cracks began to show. Arif's confidence morphed into possessiveness, and his sweet gestures became overshadowed by his jealous outbursts. He wanted to control her, Maya explained. If she went out with friends or didn't reply to his texts right away, he'd get furious. At first, she thought it was because he loved her so much. But we could all see it was toxic. Adis tried to make things work, believing she could help Arif change. But as his behavior became more erratic, her friends and family grew increasingly concerned. Arguments became more frequent, and Adis began to pull away from the people who cared about her most. She was always so open with us, Maya said. But after a while, she started keeping things to herself. It was like she was slipping away. By the time Adis decided to end the relationship, it was already too late. Arif couldn't handle the idea of losing her, and his jealousy spiraled into rage. According to her friends, Adis had confided that she was afraid of what Arif might do if she broke things off completely. She told me, "He says he can't live without me," Maya recalled. I begged her to stay away from him, but she didn't want to believe he could hurt her. Adding fuel to the fire was the arrival of Arif's new girlfriend, Nadia Sukma, a 20-year-old who seemed eager to help him plot his revenge against Adis. Their relationship, far from being a fresh start, was built on a foundation of jealousy and toxicity. Together, Arif and Nadia became a volatile duo, with their shared resentment toward Adis driving them to unspeakable acts. In the days leading up to her murder, Adis was trying to move on with her life. She was focusing on her studies, spending time with her friends, and planning for her future. But the shadow of her relationship with Arif loomed large. Her friends later revealed that she had received multiple messages from him, begging her to meet and talk things out. Adis, always compassionate, agreed, hoping to find closure and put an end to the drama once and for all. She wanted to believe the best in people, Maya said. Even after everything he put her through, she thought she could help him see reason. That's just who she was. On the night of her death, Adis told her family she was going out to meet a friend. She promised to be back soon, flashing them her signature smile as she walked out the door. It was the last time they would see her alive. Adis's decision to meet with Arif would prove to be fatal. According to investigators, she got into his car, unaware that Nadia was waiting in the back seat. What started as a conversation quickly escalated into violence. Witnesses reported hearing raised voices and muffled screams as the car sped off into the night. Adis fought back with everything she had, but she was no match for the two attackers. Arif and Nadia overpowered her. their jealousy and rage boiling over into an act of pure brutality. The exact details of what happened in that car remain too gruesome to recount fully. But one thing is clear. Adis's final moments were filled with terror. The news of Adis's murder sent shockwaves through her community and beyond. Social media lit up with tributes to the young woman, whose life was stolen far too soon. Hashtags like Ahando, Justice for Adis, and Stop Youth Violence trended for days, as people from all walks of life came together to demand accountability for her killers. She had so much more to give, her professor said during a memorial service. Adis was going to change the world. It's up to us now to make sure her story inspires the change she wanted to see. For Adis's family, the grief was overwhelming. Her parents, who had worked tirelessly to provide her with opportunities, struggled to comprehend the senseless violence that took her away. Her younger brother, clutching a framed photo of her, summed up what so many were feeling. She didn't deserve this. She deserved everything good. Adis's tragic story serves as a chilling reminder of how toxic relationships can spiral out of control and how jealousy, when left unchecked, can turn deadly. It's a wake-up call to communities everywhere to recognize the warning signs and intervene before it's too late. As the investigation into her murder continues, one thing is certain. Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto's life was a beacon of light, and her death will not be in vain. Her story has already begun to inspire change, shining a spotlight on the dangers of possessive relationships and the urgent need to protect those at risk. Her friends and family vow to honor her memory, ensuring that the world never forgets the name Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto, a bright star whose light will continue to shine even in the darkest of times. The murder of Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto wasn't just a tragic loss. It was a crime so calculated, so horrifying, that it left investigators stunned. As the details began to emerge, a chilling picture of jealousy, betrayal, and violence came into focus, leaving no doubt about the monstrous acts committed inside that fateful car. It all started with a single phone call. A local in Tangerang, Indonesia, reported a suspicious, abandoned car, emitting a foul odor. What investigators found inside was beyond their worst fears. Adis's lifeless body was sprawled in the back seat, showing clear signs of a violent attack. Her face bore bruises, her hands had defensive wounds, and there were marks around her neck suggesting strangulation. The vehicle itself told a story of chaos and struggle. Blood spatter on the upholstery, scratch marks on the interior, and signs of an attempt to clean the scene pointed to a crime that was both brutal and hastily covered up. Forensic teams immediately got to work, gathering evidence that would later prove vital in unraveling the mystery of Adis's murder. In a case filled with questions, the first answers came from a source that has become the silent witness in countless crimes: CCTV footage. Cameras from a nearby gas station captured images of Arif Wahyu and Nadia Sukma, the prime suspects, purchasing cleaning supplies and duct tape shortly before Adis's death. The footage revealed their calm demeanor, a stark contrast to the horrifying events that would follow. Another set of cameras near the abandoned car captured the same duo disposing of evidence and fleeing the scene. The footage was damning, providing investigators with a clear link between Arif, Nadia, and the murder. It was chilling to see how composed they were, one officer remarked. They showed no signs of panic. just cold, calculated actions. Using GPS data from Arif's phone and the car's navigation system, investigators pieced together the timeline of Adis's final moments. She had entered the car willingly, likely believing she was meeting Arif to resolve their lingering conflicts. However, the presence of Nadia in the back seat turned what should have been a conversation into a deadly ambush. According to the evidence, an argument quickly erupted inside the vehicle. Witnesses in the area reported hearing muffled screams and the sound of something striking the interior of the car. Forensic analysis later revealed that Adis had been strangled and beaten, with her injuries indicating a prolonged struggle. Despite her valiant efforts to fight back, the odds were against her. By the time Adis's body was discovered, Arif and Nadia had vanished. Their sudden disappearance only fueled suspicions, and a nationwide manhunt was launched to track them down. Investigators followed a trail of clues, including Arif's last known whereabouts and Nadia's recent social media posts, which hinted at their possible location. As the manhunt unfolded, shocking details about the couple's relationship began to surface. Witnesses came forward with accounts of their toxic dynamic, describing Nadia's jealousy of Adis and Arif's obsessive need to control her. Friends of the pair revealed that they had often spoken about Adis in derogatory terms, painting her as an obstacle to their happiness. It was clear they were obsessed with her. One friend said they couldn't let her go, even if it meant destroying her. After several days on the run, Arif and Nadia were apprehended in a small coastal town where they had been hiding in a relative's home. The arrest was swift and uneventful, with both suspects surrendering without resistance. But their calm demeanor during the arrest only added to the unsettling nature of the case. When questioned, Arif initially denied any involvement in Adis's death, claiming that they had argued but parted ways peacefully. Nadia, on the other hand, was less composed, breaking down during interrogation and implicating both herself and Arif in the murder. Her confession provided critical details about the crime, including their plan to lure Adis into the car and their subsequent attempts to cover their tracks. The physical evidence against Arif and Nadia was overwhelming. In addition to the CCTV footage, forensic analysis of the car revealed a treasure trove of damning clues. Blood spatter. Adis's blood was found on the car's interior, consistent with the injuries detailed in her autopsy. Fingerprints. Arif's and Nadia's fingerprints were found on the cleaning supplies and duct tape used during the crime. Personal belongings. Adis's phone and jewelry, which had been taken during the attack, were recovered from Nadia's bag. These findings painted a grim picture of two individuals who had meticulously planned and executed a heinous crime, only to be undone by their own arrogance and carelessness. While the physical evidence left no doubt about who committed the crime, the question of why lingered in the minds of investigators and the public. What could drive two young people to commit such a horrific act? The answer lay in the toxic cocktail of jealousy, control, and resentment that defined Arif and Nadia's relationship. Arif, unwilling to let go of Adis, saw her independence as a threat to his fragile ego. Nadia, consumed by jealousy, viewed Adis as a rival who needed to be eliminated. Together, they formed a dangerous alliance fueled by their shared hatred and insecurities. Psychologists brought in to analyze the case described their behavior as a classic example of coercive control turned deadly. Arif's obsessive need to dominate Adis, combined with Nadia's desire to prove her loyalty to him, created a volatile dynamic that exploded into violence. As the details of Adis's murder came to light, the community was left reeling. How could something so horrific happen in their midst? And how had two seemingly ordinary young people become capable of such cruelty? Vigils were held in Adis's honor, with friends, family, and strangers coming together to mourn her loss and demand justice. Social media was flooded with tributes, with many sharing photos of Adis smiling and full of life. She deserved so much more. One post read, "We won't stop until her killers are held accountable." The stage was set for what promised to be one of the most high-profile trials in Indonesia's recent history. With overwhelming evidence and public outrage fueling the case, prosecutors vowed to seek the maximum penalty for Arif and Nadia. For Aris's family, the trial would be an opportunity to confront the people who had taken their daughter away, and to ensure that her story would serve as a warning to others. "We want justice," her mother said, "not just for Adis, but for every young woman who has ever been afraid to speak up, who has ever felt trapped in a toxic relationship." As the investigation moved toward trial, one thing was clear. The murder of Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto was more than just a crime. It was a wake-up call. It exposed the dangers of toxic relationships, the devastating impact of unchecked jealousy, and the urgent need for communities to recognize and address the warning signs before it's too late. Adis's story was far from over. It had already begun to inspire change, serving as a rallying cry for justice and a reminder that even in the face of unspeakable tragedy, the truth has a way of coming to light. The trial of Arif Wahyu and Nadia Sukma wasn't just about determining guilt. It was about exposing the depth of their cruelty and ensuring justice for Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto. The courtroom became a battleground where every chilling detail of the crime was laid bare, and the entire nation watched as the two perpetrators faced the consequences of their actions. From the moment the trial began, it captured the attention of the Indonesian public. Media outlets provided live updates, and social media buzzed with discussions about the case. People who had never met Adis felt connected to her story, her life, and her tragic death. Hashtags like "Sa Justice for Adis" and "Punish the Monsters" flooded timelines with citizens calling for the harshest penalties for the accused. Adis's parents and siblings sat stoically in the courtroom, clutching photographs of their beloved daughter and sister. "We're here for her," her mother said. "She deserves to have her voice heard." Arif and Nadia faced multiple charges, including premeditated murder for the deliberate planning and execution of Adis's death, evidence tampering for attempting to clean the crime scene and dispose of Adis's body, conspiracy for working together to lure Adis into a trap. The prosecution made it clear from the start, this was not a crime of passion. It was a calculated act driven by jealousy, control, and a disturbing lack of humanity. The prosecution meticulously presented their case, building a timeline of events that left no doubt about the couple's guilt. They used CCTV footage, clips showing Arif and Nadia purchasing cleaning supplies and duct tape, as well as their movements around the crime scene. Forensic evidence, blood samples, fingerprints, and items recovered from the car, all linking the crime directly to the accused. Witness testimonies, statements from friends, neighbors, and forensic experts painted a clear picture of the couple's toxic relationship and Adis's final moments. The most damning evidence, however, came from Nadia's own confession. In a taped interrogation, she described how she and Arif had planned the attack. "He told me we had to do it," she said, her voice trembling. "He said Adis would never leave us alone." Arif and Nadia's defense team faced an uphill battle. Their strategy focused on portraying the crime as impulsive rather than premeditated. They argued that the argument in the car had escalated unexpectedly and that the couple had panicked after Adis's death. Arif's lawyer painted him as a troubled young man who had been overwhelmed by his emotions. "He didn't plan to kill her," the lawyer claimed. "This was a tragic accident, not a calculated act." Nadia's defense, meanwhile, tried to frame her as a victim of Arif's manipulation. Her lawyer argued that she had been coerced into participating in the crime, describing her as a young woman blinded by love and fear. Throughout the trial, Arif and Nadia's demeanor became a focal point. Witnesses noted their lack of visible remorse, with Arif appearing stoic and emotionless, while Nadia alternated between tears and silence. For many, their behavior in the courtroom was as chilling as the crime itself. During his testimony, Arif showed no signs of regret. Instead, he appeared defiant, blaming Adis for the argument and claiming she had pushed him too far. His words drew audible gasps from the courtroom and tears from Adis's family. Nadia, while more emotional, also struggled to garner sympathy. Her shifting accounts of the crime and her attempts to minimize her role only added to the public's anger. "I didn't want to do it," she said during her testimony, "but I couldn't say no to him." The most heart-wrenching moments of the trial came from those who had loved Adis. Her best friend Maya took the stand to share the impact of her loss. "She was more than my friend," Maya said through tears. "She was my sister, my inspiration. They didn't just take her life. They took a part of all of us." Adis's mother also delivered a powerful statement addressing Arif and Nadia directly. "You stole our sunshine," she said, her voice breaking. "You took away a daughter, a sister, a friend, but you will never take her light. It will shine forever, even in the darkness you've created." After weeks of emotional testimony and overwhelming evidence, the jury reached their decision. Arif and Nadia were found guilty on all counts, including premeditated murder. The judge, in a scathing condemnation of their actions, described the crime as a monstrous betrayal of trust and humanity. Both were sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for at least 25 years. The courtroom erupted in applause and tears as the verdict was read. For Adis's family, it was a moment of bittersweet relief. "It won't bring her back," her father said, "but it's the justice she deserved." The trial's conclusion sparked a wave of reflection across Indonesia. Adis's murder forced the nation to confront uncomfortable truths about jealousy, toxic relationships, and the warning signs of violence. Advocacy groups, used the case to highlight the importance of early intervention and education, emphasizing the need to break the cycle of abuse before it escalates to tragedy. While the trial brought closure to the case, Adis's story continues to resonate far beyond the courtroom. Her family and friends have dedicated themselves to preserving her memory, launching the Adis Foundation to raise awareness about domestic violence and support young women in crisis. She always wanted to make a difference, Maya said at the foundation's launch event. Now, even though she's gone, she's still changing lives. The trial of Arif and Nadia wasn't just about punishing two individuals. It was about sending a message. Adis's story serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked jealousy and the importance of recognizing the signs of toxic relationships. As her mother said during her closing remarks, "We couldn't save Adis, but we can save others." That's how we honor her. That's how we make sure her light never fades. The trial of Arif Wahyu and Nadia Sukma brought justice for Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto, but the ripples of her tragic death extended far beyond the courtroom. In its wake, Indonesia was left grappling with the societal and systemic issues that allowed such a horrifying crime to occur. Adis's story became a rallying cry for change, igniting discussions on toxic relationships, youth violence, and the urgent need for better protections for women. For Adis's family, the verdict brought a sense of justice but not closure. Life without her was a daily battle, filled with memories that were both comforting and painful. Her mother, in a heartfelt interview with a local news outlet, described the empty space Adis had left behind. "She was our sunshine," she said. "Her laughter used to fill this house. Now, it's so quiet." Her father channeled his grief into action, advocating for stronger laws to protect young women from violence. "If we don't learn from this, then we failed Adis," he said. "Her death must mean something." Adis's friends also struggled to come to terms with the loss. Maya, her best friend, spoke candidly about the lingering trauma of losing someone so close in such a horrific way. "Every day, I think about what she must have gone through," she said. "It's something I wouldn't wish on anyone. We have to make sure this doesn't happen again." In Tangerang, where Adis had lived and died, her murder became a catalyst for change. Local leaders organized town hall meetings to discuss how the community could better protect its young people. Topics ranged from recognizing the signs of abusive relationships to creating safe spaces for victims to seek help. Schools and universities introduced workshops on healthy relationships and emotional intelligence, hoping to equip students with the tools to navigate conflicts without resorting to violence. "We can't change what happened to Adis," said one community leader, "but we can change the way we support our young people moving forward." The community also held an annual vigil in Adis's memory, a somber but powerful event that brought people together to reflect on her life and the lessons her death had taught them. At the first vigil, her younger brother spoke to the crowd, urging them to honor her legacy by standing up against violence. "Adis wouldn't want us to be angry," he said. "She'd want us to fight for a better world." Adis's story resonated far beyond her community, sparking nationwide conversations about the societal factors that contribute to violence against women. Advocacy groups use the case to highlight the alarming prevalence of domestic violence and toxic relationships, emphasizing the importance of early intervention. Key issues that emerged included the role of jealousy and control. Experts pointed to the dangers of possessiveness in relationships, urging young people to recognize unhealthy dynamics and seek help when necessary. Youth violence. The involvement of two young perpetrators in such a brutal crime raised questions about the pressures and influences faced by Indonesia's youth, from social media to societal expectations. The stigma around seeking help. Many pointed out that victims like Adis often feel trapped, fearing judgment or retaliation if they speak out. Advocacy groups called for more accessible resources and public campaigns to encourage victims to seek help. In the months following the trial, Adis's family launched the Adis Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to preventing violence against women and supporting young people in crisis. The foundation's mission was to turn Adis's story into a force for good, ensuring that her death would not be in vain. The foundation focused on three main initiatives: education and awareness, hosting workshops and creating educational materials on recognizing and addressing toxic relationships, support services, funding counseling programs, emergency shelters, and legal aid for victims of violence. Scholarships, providing financial assistance to young women pursuing education, particularly in fields related to social work and advocacy. At the Foundation's launch event, Adisi's mother spoke about the importance of continuing her daughter's legacy. Adis was a light in this world, she said. Through this foundation, we'll make sure that light never goes out. Social media played a pivotal role in amplifying Adis's story and mobilizing public support. Hashtags like Siege or Justice for Adis and Ya Stop the Violence trended for weeks, with people sharing tributes, calls to action, and resources for victims of abuse. Activists used platforms like Instagram and Twitter to raise awareness about the warning signs of abusive relationships and to challenge cultural norms that perpetuate gender-based violence. Adis's story isn't just about what happened to her, one post read. It's about how we can all do better to protect the people we love. Adis's murder served as a wake-up call, forcing society to confront uncomfortable truths about jealousy, control, and violence. Among the key lessons were recognizing the signs. Friends, family, and communities must learn to identify the warning signs of toxic relationships and intervene before it's too late. Empowering victims. Providing resources and support for those in abusive situations is crucial to breaking the cycle of violence. Challenging cultural norms. Addressing the societal pressures that normalize possessiveness and aggression is essential to creating a safer world. Adis's story reached audiences far beyond Indonesia, resonating with people around the world who saw echoes of her struggles in their own lives. International organizations cited her case as an example of the universal nature of violence against women and the urgent need for systemic change. Her legacy inspired collaborations between advocacy groups across borders, sharing resources and strategies to address the root causes of violence. Adis's story is a reminder that this is a global issue, said one activist. Her light shines on in every step we take, to make the world safer for women. As her community and the nation continued to heal, Adis's family found solace in the knowledge that her story had sparked meaningful change. She always wanted to make a difference, her father said. Now, even though she's gone, she's still changing the world. The annual vigils in her honor became more than just a remembrance. They became a celebration of her life and a commitment to the future she dreamed of. As her younger brother put it, Adis may be gone, but her light is still here, guiding us towards something better. Adis's story is a testament to the strength of a community, united in the face of tragedy. Her life, though cut short, continues to inspire hope, action, and the determination to ensure that no one else has to endure the same fate. Her light will never fade. Adis Sara Angelina Cuto's life may have been cut short, but her legacy has become a beacon of hope and a rallying cry for change. In the wake of her tragic murder, her story has transcended the crime itself, inspiring individuals, communities, and even nations to take action against violence and ensure that her memory continues to make a difference. For Adis's family, the pain of losing her is a wound that will never fully heal. Yet, amidst their grief, they found a sense of purpose, ensuring that her death is not in vain. The Adis Foundation, established in her honor, has become a powerful force for advocacy and change. Through the foundation, Adis's parents and siblings work tirelessly to promote awareness about domestic violence and toxic relationships. They collaborate with schools, community organizations, and government agencies to provide education and resources that can save lives. Adis was always about helping others, her mother said. This is our way of keeping her spirit alive. The Foundation's scholarship program, which supports young women pursuing education and leadership roles, has already made a tangible impact. Recipients often describe how Adis's story motivates them to strive for a better future, not just for themselves, but for their communities. I want to make her proud, one recipient said. I want to carry her light forward. Adis's murder has forced Indonesian society to confront difficult truths about the prevalence of violence and the cultural norms that enable it. The case sparked a nationwide dialogue on issues such as the dangers of jealousy and possessiveness. Advocates emphasize the importance of recognizing red flags in relationships and addressing them early. The need for accessible resources. Many pointed out the barriers victims face when trying to leave abusive relationships, including fear, stigma, and lack of support. The role of communities. Neighbors, friends, and families were urged to play a more active role in identifying and intervening in cases of potential violence. The discussions extended beyond Indonesia's borders, with international organizations citing Adis's story as a call to action for global efforts to combat violence against women. Her case became a symbol of the urgent need for systemic change, inspiring campaigns and initiatives worldwide. One of the most significant outcomes of Adis's legacy has been the emphasis on empowering young people to build healthier relationships. Schools across Indonesia have introduced programs focused on emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and recognizing the signs of toxic dynamics. These efforts aim to equip students with the tools they need to navigate relationships and avoid the pitfalls that led to Adis's tragic fate. Universities and workplaces have also joined the movement, offering workshops and resources for young adults. We want to create a culture where respect and empathy are the norm, said a representative from a university that partnered with the Adis Foundation. Adis's story reminds us of what's at stake. Adis's story has also galvanized communities to take a more active role in preventing violence. In Tangerang, her hometown, local leaders have implemented initiatives to strengthen community ties and promote vigilance. These include neighborhood watch programs. Residents are encouraged to look out for one another and report signs of trouble, fostering a sense of collective responsibility. Support networks. Community centers now offer counseling and resources for individuals experiencing relationship conflicts or abuse. Annual awareness campaigns. Events like candlelight vigils and public seminars serve as reminders of Adis's legacy and the importance of continued action. These programs are about more than just honoring Adis. One local leader explained, they're about making sure no one else has to go through what she did. The impact of Adis's story has extended far beyond Indonesia, resonating with audiences around the world. Advocacy groups in other countries have used her case as a starting point for conversations about violence, gender dynamics, and the importance of early intervention. In Southeast Asia, regional organizations have partnered with the Adis Foundation to share best practices and resources. International forums on violence prevention now often include sessions dedicated to Adis's legacy, highlighting how her story has inspired change on a global scale. It's incredible to see how one life can touch so many, said representative from a women's rights organization in the Philippines. Adis's story is a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's a chance for light to shine through. Media coverage played a crucial role in amplifying Adis's story, turning her case from a local tragedy into a national and international movement. Documentaries, podcasts, and investigative articles have delved into her life, her dreams, and the systemic issues that led to her death. These stories have not only kept her memory alive, but also educated audiences about the importance of addressing violence in all its forms. The Adis Foundation has also leveraged storytelling as a tool for change. Through social media campaigns, they've shared stories of survivors, resources for victims, and messages of hope and resilience. We want people to see that change is possible, said a foundation spokesperson. Adis's story is heartbreaking, but it's also a call to action. For those who knew Adis, her legacy is about more than just preventing violence. It's about honoring the values she stood for. Her kindness, determination, and belief in a better future continue to inspire those who carry her memory forward. Her family takes solace in the knowledge that Adis's life, though tragically short, has made a lasting impact. She wanted to change the world, her father said, and in her own way, she has. As time passes, the pain of Adis's loss remains, but so does the determination to ensure that her story leads to lasting change. Her foundation, her community, and the movements inspired by her story are all testaments to the power of resilience and the human spirit. Adis may be gone, Maya said at a recent vigil. But she's still here with us, in every act of kindness, in every step toward justice, in every life her story saves. Her light will never fade. Adis Sarah Angelina Cuto's story is one of heartbreak and hope, a reminder of the fragility of life and the strength of a community united in the face of tragedy. Through her legacy, she continues to inspire action, spark change, and shine a light on the path toward a safer, more compassionate world. Her name is more than a memory, it's a movement. And as her family, friends, and countless others work to carry her light forward, they ensure that her impact will be felt for generations to come. Addis's light will never go out.